not sick of death. Your friends, your mother, your legacy lie in ruin.
No, not yet. So long as you lie dead at my feet.
Would it be worth it then? Just to see me dead?
This is gonna be like a kind of like an Oedipus thing. Except no sex. Hopefully. Just no, don't do that. I mean, I know this game is like kind of getting into certain taboos, but don't do that. Especially considering everyone's a zombie. Yes, in killing you, my actions will ripple through the ages. I will be remembered. My mother's sacrifice will be remembered. And you'll be forgotten.
Look around at these decrepit statues. They were built to immortalize the Ascended, to honor their memory. But can you name any of them? No one can. Not anymore. So tell me, who will remember the commoners when they are gone? Who will remember us when we are gone? You are still a child. You don't understand that what I do is greater than the both of us. When I am done, no one will ever fear death again. That is worth everything.
Once the plague of immortality begins to spread, it will spell ruin for the world as you know it. I'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Face me! How many times have you died trying to reach me? Is all your pain worth it?
I am super orc. You can't stand a chance against this.
You lack the conviction to do what is necessary.
Look at this.
Martyrs must learn the truth. Only I can free them from their
Look
pain.
at this orcish power. You have a phase 2? Oh, what the hell? There is a phase 2.
You were forged by war, but I knew a time before it. When you continue to feed into this cycle of death. Soren, if you destroy it, all immortals will die. And I will not endure this torture again. Ask yourself if it's worth it.
By virtue of the divine order, her life is already forfeit. What are you waiting for? This is your moment. The culmination of your struggle. End it all. Embrace your destiny.
Dun dun dun.
We were sent here to die, but we persevered.
Oh my god! Whoa, 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 calm down! Oh, this is so crazy! Damn it. I got greedy. That attack takes way too long.
We were sent here to die, but we persevered.
Jeez.
How many piteous humans lost? Where there is
Whee!
I should have known you'd never understand. After all, I was your conviction, and you are my blood.
Take off the mask.
Look what's become of us.
Endless fear, endless sadness, endless rage. What does that mean?
Open your mind to him.
Embrace the dark. Free yourself from your earthly constraints.
How can you ask me to kill my own mother?
Your mother's life was forfeit the moment she left for the expedition. What you see before you is a woman sustained through dark magic. She will degrade into the thralls you slaughtered to get here. Blood for blood. That is the only way. Soren, destroy the source and free your mother.
It's come to this, has it? Betrayed by my own son. A pawn of this creature.
Isn't she the pawn of that other creature? The giant head with the claw?
How do you even know he is who he says he is?
Is he not dead? He's Matt Mercer. You can trust him, right?
Only those who are at my door can see me. You've been an absent guest for the past several years. It's time you leave this mortal realm.
This is the same line from the other, the illusion or something, right? Oh, I need to choose. Doesn't really matter because I'm an orc. I'm so damn powerful, it's ridiculous. Let's do a safety heal. Oh, what the hell? Oh, what the hell? Okay. Whoa, that's insane. Do I need to redo everything?
We were sent here to die.
Yeah, I do. Crap! I'm tilting.
We were sent here to die, but we persevered.
Oh, that was slick. That wasn't as slick. Me orc. I gotta get rid of this phase now. Oh wow, that actually killed me. What? He actually fall off. Okay then. Yeah, this one's really crazy. I think I need to slash, like the first time I did it. First time was really good. Slash into the dodge zone. This one's so annoying. That work? That worked. Okay, good. Gun OP. Okay, let's figure out what this one is. This is Phoenix? Is that it? Wait, that's it?
This pain. I can't endure it anymore. If I could go back, I would have never left. Soren, you don't deserve this.
It's supposed to be the final one.
Open your eyes to him.
Embrace the dark. Free yourself from your earthly constraints.
There we go. Talented. What does that mean?
Do what you must. But no, there was never a moment that you weren't in my thoughts. I couldn't live with myself for leaving you behind. Returning to you one day kept me going. Nothing makes me happier than to see you here now. I'm sorry I failed you as a mother. I wish I could have spent more time with you. Sorry. Don't make the same mistakes I did. I may not have been there for you in life, but I will always be with you in death. So, live.
Heroic rematch. So what, I just destroyed the crystal now?
What are you waiting for? This is your...
What if he's actually lying to me?
Truly? I expected more from someone who bears witness to the very stagnation that demerits life.
Fine, I'll do it. What did I do? I mean, he's not wrong, right? Immortals? They shouldn't live forever. People shouldn't live forever. Life only has meaning because there's death. Goodbye, Renekton. Wow, Renekton's feeding so badly now. Are they dead too? No, don't die! Oh, I only lived. That's surprising. I thought she was gonna die to Endless or something. I don't know most of these voice actors. Stupid Fink. Matt Mercer wasn't credited? Secret. Maybe I missed it. Nice. You can't even see the entire line. What have I done? You've contained Ceradan's immortality and freed your mother from the evil that had befallen this place. But without her, the kingdoms will storm Kershiorai, and when they find nothing, peace built on a lie is a fragile thing. No one may know Endless has fallen here today. All that I've done. Am I free to go now? Dun dun dun. Three? I can only choose 3? So that was the bad ending?
Playing dead, were you? Shame it's always the cowards that survive. Considering the fate of your... Go back to Valor.
Everything I fought for.
Go back to...
Wait, this is... Oh, I thought it connected with the ending. I guess not.
Back so soon. Better get used to this contract. Will rest assured, though are you mortals in return. Give it time.
Death lied to me. I'm not sure how to get the other endings. I don't want to risk it because I die a lot. Being immortal is really scary in a game like this. I'll leave Renekton alive this time. Well, I say this time, but I'm not gonna play anymore. I'll just accept that ending. Sometimes you just have to accept fate. Oh, the creepy intro is gone now. Nice. Alright, I'll do my closing statements then. Death's Gambit is over. Okay, so closing statements for Death's Gambit. Just to point out, this is a reflection, not a review. Just gonna echo some of the stuff that I talked about during the playthrough, possibly with a little more detail. Usually I don't talk about too much, but I tend to go on tangents. Hopefully it doesn't go on for too long. This music's pretty loud still. Okay, so speaking of music, let's talk about audio-visual. I think alongside a lot of the other stuff in this game, audio-visual is kind of a mixed bag. The game undoubtedly has good music, and some of the music, I feel like it kind of has a Ghibli feel to it. You know, that whole innocent fantasy style of music. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit atypical of a dark fantasy genre game, but I still feel like it fits pretty well, especially considering the story and the setting, which I'll get into shortly. I think it's very appropriate. But an issue is the sound effects. Music great, sound effects not as much. Problem is that some of the sound effects are way too loud, even if you turn them down. Like the main menu as well, like you just can't change the options properly. It just feels like it's still loud even though you turn it down. And this is something that you could just ignore, but when you suddenly hear a loud noise that's like 5 times louder than everything else, it really does stand out. And if you constantly hear this and it constantly annoys you, then it's a little bit problematic. But this isn't really a huge issue in the long run as long as they patch it. It's just one of those polished things that the game lacks. The art style, as you can see from this, art style is really cool, really bloody and gory at times, but still really cool. I think it definitely helps the atmosphere, world building, setting, all that kind of stuff. It's very appropriate the way they did it. I don't think there's much else I could say about it. As for narrative aspects, for this one I'll talk a little bit more about. Surprisingly, I thought the narrative aspects of the game were pretty good. The story was one of those kind of mildly interesting, typical of this genre. A little bit of an ambiguous figuring out what's going on, solve some kind of problem while being immersed in this dark fantasy world and experiencing all the darkness and edginess, that kind of stuff. And regardless, I think the game still had some pretty good takeaways. Like the whole aspect of life and death, that theme. It's been done to death. Pun intended. But I still thought it was a pretty good attempt at that theme. The little bits about things like legacy, family, being remembered, your name being remembered, that kind of stuff. Very minor details in the grand scheme of things, the entire game. But, you know, those are the usual touches for stories that have similar themes and motifs. And the game does touch on that. And for some people, more than others, it might stand out in their minds a bit more. I don't think it's that revolutionary, but, you know, it also doesn't fail. Like, it still tells the story well enough. And similarly, I think the writing is pretty good. Is it surprising? Possibly. Just considering the standard of writing nowadays. The game has a lot of serious stuff. Obviously, the main story is serious, but there was some less serious stuff on the side, like Death wearing an apron, cooking and stuff, and Death playing a video game. Those kind of little Easter egg style bits of the game. Humorous aspects. Like, it all contributes to the whole package, and I don't think the less than serious parts really hinder anything, really. It doesn't damage the story. It's not distracting or anything. It's just every once in a while you see something mildly interesting, kind of funny. That's it. That's one of those writing things. And when I say writing, just to clarify, writing is specifically how the author tells the story with words and direction. So the way they direct the story, the actions and interactions, the way the characters are made to be, not what happens. Story means like the events that occur. A little bit different. Kind of small nuance, that's about it. As usual, I always say this, I would have wanted to see more world building, but I don't think it's very necessary because this is a framed story with a controlled setting. It does leave some questions though, like the technologically advanced place, Guard Tum. How did they get their technology, and why hasn't anyone else been able to replicate that? How does it tie in with immortality? I mean, there is the whole aspect of being immortal because you're a machine thing, but they didn't really touch upon that, right? I would have liked to see more details about the war, the expedition. What are they, right? Explain it a bit more. Why is this happening? What are the different factions and, you know, all these groups of people? There's so many different types of people from different locations, each with their own stories, but it doesn't really touch upon that because the story is focused on Soren and his mother primarily, and then those other characters, the other places, they're just kind of on the side. It's nice to have those things, but it's not really necessary, I think, for this game. And another little extra bit, as an aside, I like how this game took some risks with taboos. Too few games do that because they don't want to get censored. The two main ones are cannibalism and child death. And yes, this is pixel art, but it's still pretty explicit, especially in this style. It's not very cartoony. It has an air of realism to it. There's a game coming out called Blasphemous that kind of takes this to the next level. But at the moment, I can't really say for certain if all that violence and gore in that game is really important. Like, what is the point of all of it? In this game, it was used for characterization, with the Dark Knight and the really disturbing scene with Soren's mother stabbing him. Cannibalism, I think, is a little less taboo now, but child death is definitely still up there. Basically, if you do anything to children in stories, it's gonna upset people, it's gonna be disturbing or perceived as disturbing. And that scene with Soren's mother holding him against the table and stabbing him repeatedly, it's horrifying, even though it's just pixels. But I think it's amazing for storytelling and, you know, trying to push past those limits, those boundaries that we have established for fiction writing. I want more media, especially games, to kind of go nuts with this kind of stuff. Like, I'm not particularly fond of it. It's cool to see, but that's because it's taboo. I feel like if you're gonna try and tell a story that shows the horrific nature of humanity or something similar to that, just do it. Just do it for the sake of the story. Go all out. But unfortunately, it's hard to publish stuff doing that. So that's why people don't do it. They try to get past it with loopholes, like making it implicitly whatever they want to talk about, whatever taboo, rather than explicitly. Anyway, let's return to Death's Gambit. Gameplay, one of the most important parts of the game, arguably the most important part of this game. It's a mess. I don't know how else to say it. It's a mess. The core fundamentals of the game are sound. Enemies deal a ton of damage. You have a moderately spammable invincibility frame skill, and then you have a stamina bar to juggle offensive and defensive actions. It's a Souls-like. That's Souls gameplay. This game is definitely not shy about telling the player almost immediately where the influence comes from. But even though this system, this style of gameplay, is established and generally accepted as refined and polished, this game's version of it is a little bit awkward. It's janky. I like using that word to describe this kind of stuff. It's a janky game. Imagine this. You see a car on the street, okay? And the car has 2 damaged tires. 4 tires altogether. Maybe there's like a leak. Okay, and tires are slowly leaking and there's nothing you can do about it. When the car moves around, I mean, it's still a car, right? It's still a car. It can still move around. It can still get you from place to place. It can still function, more or less. But there's something off about it when you look at it. Like the uneven movement. The slightly slow movement. Sluggish movement. That's Death's Gambit. Now, I've only played one class, so I can only speak about my experiences with that one class. But one of the things that stood out to me was basically, it's very, very hard to break away from one weapon type, because you can only use certain skills with certain weapons, and skills are very important in this game. Oh, that's without grinding, of course. Like, if you grind, then there's no limit. But I did this run without hard grinding shards, and in the end, I still felt like I got a ton of shards at the end, but I didn't feel like breaking away from using swords, because the issue is, it's too expensive in the early game. You don't have enough shards in the early game. In the late game, you have enough shards, but you're already used to using that weapon, because you've been using, let's say, swords, in my case, for the entire game. Almost. If you're used to it, you probably want to stick with it. That's usually how it works, especially in the first playthrough. As for actual combat, I think it's more or less fine. It's just janky as well. Sometimes I feel like I should have dodged something, but I'd get hit anyway. And this is probably more to do with inexperience than it is to do with the game being janky, but it could also be that. I'm not going to dismiss that also. It is a very feasible alternative, I think. Other times, I see the enemy's attack hitting me, and I don't take damage. And that's a little bit less fine. That's a little bit questionable. It's kind of awkward. Also, the whole orking strategy, just go all attack stats. I went like almost all strength. Just keep on smacking the enemy really hard. I think it works a bit too well in this game. Enemies don't have a hitbox on their actual body, so you can touch them if you want. Some other platformers, a lot of other platformers don't let you do that. This is a Souls-like thing as well. You can just hug the enemy in Souls-like games. And in this game, you can like seriously super hug the enemy and avoid their hitbox. And what I mean by this is, you can just mash attack and then just tilt your D-pad or your stick around. It's stick in this game, right? I think it's stick. So you tilt it around, you move left and right as you're smashing your attack key like an orc. And you can still dodge attacks. And you can still deal damage. I feel like it kind of ruins the challenging aspect of this genre, the fact that you can do that. But it might be because it doesn't translate as well to the 2D style from a 3D game. But Solid Sanctuary, I feel like did it okay. Much better than this game. Parrying also. In Solid Sanctuary, I didn't have too many problems with it after learning it. But in this game, I just felt like I didn't need to parry. I just orked. Brute-forced it. Feels a bit lazy. It kind of takes away from potentially compelling and interactive gameplay. So I think that's a little bit of a downside, even though you can just do it and it feels like you're doing really well, but you're not really doing that much in terms of skill. Alright. Well, I guess, there's still a lot more I can talk about, but I think ending it off here, talked about most of the main stuff already. Ending here would be okay. So I should point out that I definitely did enjoy the game. It was a fun game for me, but it's an unpolished mess. And I can't really fault them for trying. They did a great job with a lot of the non-gameplay aspects. And I'm sure if they really wanted to, they could refine the game and polish it with future patches to make it a more acceptable game. But right now, it's really hard to recommend this game because there's just so much wrong with it. But there's also so much right with it. So I'm really, really mixed on this game. But regardless of how I feel, it was a fun experience. Oh, one more thing I want to add. I said in the very beginning in the opening statements, Adult Swim games, there seems to be a pattern where they don't really QA their games well enough. I hope that changes in the future. I don't know if it's because they're rushing the devs to work faster or something, forcing them to meet deadlines, but games need to be more polished than the ones that I've seen from Adult Swim. So this is definitely something in the future that I would want to see them change, but at this rate, I don't think it's going to happen. And they're definitely a little more lenient, if you want to use that word, on the quality of games they release compared to other publishers. But this is the end, so let's close the book on Death's Gambit. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. See you next time for whatever's coming up next. Have a nice day.